Welcome back to my kitchen. The next page in our taco manual takes us to green chorizo. Now, I know that may sound like the weirdest thing in the world if you've only had red chorizo, but I have been in love with this specialty of the town of Toluca since I was in my teens. Honest to goodness, that's when I first had green chorizo. So you leave Mexico City and you go way up into the mountains to Toluca. It's at like 9,000 feet, and there they make all kinds of amazing pork products. And one of the pork products that they make is this green chorizo. So think of it this way. For those of you that like lots of herbs in food, this is your herby chorizo. You're basically replacing everything that is red in red chorizo with something green in green chorizo. And the nice thing about it is it's very, very easy to make. And I'm going to show you how you do that. The first thing that we have to do here is to roast a poblano, because instead of using dried chilies in the chorizo like you would for red chorizo, and typically we are going to use Poblano chiles, and we are going to use a little bit of Serrano chiles too, but I'm not going to roast those. I just have to roast this one because Poblanos have a very tough skin and I have to get it off. Plus their flavor comes out more when you roast them than if you were just to put this in raw. So I'm just going to turn this over the heat until it's completely charred on all sides. You can hear it blackening and blistering right now. This has cooled off just a little bit now so that I can handle it, and I am pulling off that charred skin. And then I'm going to give it a very brief rinse. I like to do this at the sink just simply because it contains the mess of all of the seeds that are on the inside and all of that charred skin that's on the outside. Once I've gotten most of the charred skin off of it, I just break it open, or tear it open is a better description of that. Pull out the seed pod and the stem like that. And then I don't want to wash away the charred flavor. So what I do is just basically using water to help me kind of clean it up a little bit like this. Just get rid of all the seeds and all the little stray bits of char that are on there. And now to cut it up. I'm going to roughly chop up the roasted poblano, just to make it easier to blend it all together. We're going to put these serranos in there too, so I'll chop those roughly. I've got some garlic cloves that I've already peeled here, which will go in to the food processor. I'll just cut those guys in half a little bit like that. Make it easier. And now for those herbs that I was talking about, we have a whole bunch of parsley here. Now you can just tear it like that to get the tough end stems off of it. I'm going to do the same thing with this cilantro bunch here. I know cilantro and parsley come in all different size bunches, but you can see what I'm using here. And I give you lots in the recipe that goes along with this video. I give you lots of details about all of this. And so then I just like to chop this in crosswise a couple of times just to make sure that everything is going to go nicely through the blades of the food processor. And then the next step is to pulse it a few times until I get kind of rough chop on it. And then I'm going to let it run until I get what I would call a coarse puree out of it. It'll be helpful, I think, to scrape the sides down because we've got some of those leaves of cilantro and parsley stuck up at the top here. And then give it a pulse or two more, and that'll be good. Now I've got 1.5 pounds of ground pork here. That's what I'm going to be starting with. And scrape this coarse puree the chili and green vegetables right into it. Now, when you're making chorizo, the one thing that is an absolutely definitive flavor in it is vinegar. So the next thing that I'm going to put in is the vinegar, but remember that vinegar will bleach out things like the green. So I'm not going to put tons of vinegar into this. I'll set this over to the side here. And I've got a light vinegar. I'm using a red wine, or excuse me, a rice vinegar here. And I'm going to put in here, well, first I'm going to give you another thing to put in here, because once I get the liquid on here, I won't be able to use this tablespoon very easily. I'm going to put some spinach powder in here. Now, spinach powder is pretty readily available because with the love for all kinds of homemade pastas, a lot of people like to make a green pasta, and so they're using a lot of spinach powder, which means that you can lay your hands on it. So I'm first going to put in 3 tablespoons of this spinach powder, which will ensure that we have a good color in this. And then my 2 tablespoons of a light vinegar. And then I'm going to put in the salt. Now this is a measured amount of salt. And I'll say that I'm using diamond crystal salt, which is a very fluffy salt. If you're using regular table salt for this, you'll want to put in 2 teaspoons. But for me, it's going to be a whole tablespoon of it because the salt is so light and fluffy. Okay. And then I'm putting on like a latex glove here. Just so that I can mix it. Some people like to do this like in a stand mixer. I find the hand works the very best with it. So just get in there and sort of massage it into. So you're going to massage everything together until the whole thing looks green. Okay. There it is. Green chorizo, pretty straightforward to make it. The flavors will really blend more beautifully if you cover this and let it sit in the refrigerator for 4 or 5 hours. But you could make it a few days, even up to a few days ahead of time. But it also freezes very well too. So I'm going to cover this. I will show you what it looks like in just a few hours. Well, doesn't look all that different than what I showed you the last time, but it is time to start cooking this because I don't know exactly how fatty this pork is. I heated the pan up a little bit to start with, but I want to see how much fat's going to render out of this. If it was pretty fatty pork, then I shouldn't need to add any oil. But after a couple of minutes, we should know that. And if I don't see much rendered fat, I will just add a little bit of vegetable or olive oil to it. And then we will fry this chorizo the way that you would fry red chorizo. It'll take about 10 minutes or so. I want to see a little bit of browning going on, and I just want to make sure that the pork is done all the way through. That'll mean that I'm going to stand here and move it quite a lot. It is ready now. I never actually added any oil at all to this. It rendered just the right amount of fat here. So I'm going to turn this off. And now I'm going to show you my very favorite way to eat it. What I think is sort of the perfect taco with green chorizo. So I'm going to cut a few slices of avocado because I love the creaminess of avocado in relationship to this, but I'm going to just do a couple of slices off of this, then peel off the exterior of it. I've got some cilantro leaves here. I've got salsa verde, which I think is, it's going same to same, but it's like all of those bright flavors I think are really good with the flavor of the green chorizo. Hot tortillas here. And I'm going to grab a couple of these guys, beautifully steamy. Here, lay those down. I like to have this with a little black beans. So I'm going to take, this is the smooth black beans, the way that you would get them down in the southern part of Mexico. So I'm going to put just a little of that at the bottom. I would call this a pasta de frijol. So spread that there. And then I'm going to put some of our chorizo over that. So just spoon that on. You see it got a little bit brown, but not too brown. It doesn't really brown that much. And then I'm going to put the avocado slice on there. A spoonful of the salsa verde, like that, across it. Then, just to reinforce the flavors of the herbs, I'll take a few cilantro leaves and put those on top here. And then we've got what I consider one of the most beautiful, interesting, and delicious tacos that you'll find in Mexico. Tacos de Chorizo Verde.